Okay, so I am representing the SoilDRaH project. So this right now we've got three people enrolled here. So it's myself, Kathy Todd Brown. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Florida. Brendan Whitehead is a grad student in my lab. He's also at New Zealand Land Care. And then Terry Baltzer is joining us from University of Calgary. And so I'm going to shamelessly exploit this opportunity to tell you a little bit about SoilDRaH and then transition into how we structure our agendas. Um, right, so SoilDRAH is either a very old or a very young project. I never quite know where to place this. So essentially, what we're hoping to do is to leverage existing data in the research literature for new insights with a common workflow shared by multiple teams. So the idea that a lot of meta-analyses end up doing the same thing. And so if we can come up with a workflow as supported by different resources and scripts, sorry, there's a dog barking in the background that I'm trying to ignore, then we can do better science. So for this year, our goal was to create a workflow for data rescue, harmonization, and curation that first year college students can use. So again, being seated at a university, first year college students provide a really great alpha testers for, is the workflow clear, our expectations uh, easy to, yeah, they're great alpha testers. Right, so let me see if I can advance my slides. There we go. Okay, so SoilDRAH started off as the International Soil Carbon Network version 3. And what they used in this for this oh dear God, there's going to be auto advance. My apologies. So ISCN 3 used what I like to call the student method or manual transcription approach. So essentially what they did is they locked a poor postdoc in a room with multiple spreadsheets and said, make them one spreadsheet. And so this is a lot of manual data transcription. It does require expert understanding of the data that you're reading, so you know whether or not you can combine certain columns. So this isn't something that you can give to an undergraduate per se. You really have to have a deep understanding of the domain in order to knit together these different data products. So we took this, and in 2017, I was like, I know how to do a table join. I've got a little bit of coding experience. We can totally automate this with a data mapping approach. So now instead of doing that manual transcription, we download the data. We then create this mapping table to annotate the variables, transform it into a long data function, map them onto ISCN variables, and then merge it into a level 1 data product, and then curate it into a level 2. So this is ideas borrowed uh, from a different group, Ryan et al., 2021, and this was also this approach was also utilized by Weider et al. In 2021 for the SoilDRAH approach. So this used very similar to what we're hoping for ISCN 4, but with slightly different data focuses. And when we started trying to test this out on individual studies in the literature, we quickly realized that we had to layer this onto a data rescue approach that didn't quite fit into this format. So we used this to then develop what we're calling the rescue harmonization curation approach. And so this is a uh, lead, do, measure, import, transformation, output. So this is a project management tool here where we start with identifying the data, summarizing it, and then we have these expert review steps as we go through this matrix, and you read it from the upper left down to the lower right, sort of row-wise here. And so this takes about 10 hours for an undergrad to process and cross-check. these different data products, but this seems to be working pretty well. And we've got a team of 5 to 10 undergrads working on data rescues in soil carbon research. So right now so this is the rescue workflow. We're working on the harmonization workflow right now. So we're taking that level 0 data rescue and then transforming it into that sort of general data model approach here. And the links here on the slide are in the notes document if you find that interesting. All right, so that was the science. Oh, right. So, how we do this. So, right now, I am the benevolent dictator for now. One of our goals as a team coming into this course was that we're standing up a little bit more formal governance document, and we're trying to expand the people who have sort of the maintainer hat role. So if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, the project will still go on. Um, Right now, we work asynchronously supported by GitHub. We use issues and pull requests. We also have weekly meetings, and this is particularly important because we have a very young team. So we use this both as sort of a learning opportunity. Hey, how do you code? What does this biogeochemical term mean? So there's often sort of a teaching element in our agenda, which you're going to see later on. But it's also sort of sort of a stand up. Hey, what did you do? What are you working on? Let's move. Can we move you from being stuck on something to unstuck? And so that is what we are going to talk a little bit more about right now. Right. So this probably is blindingly obvious to people when you think about it for a minute, but one of my big epiphanies as a facilitator and as a project manager is that meetings have beginning, middle, and ends. And that each of these three phases sort of play a specific role in your gathering or event, if you think of meetings as events. And I put in a link here to the art of gathering, which really got me thinking deeply about, okay, how do you structure these interactions? What types of containers do you hold for this? Also a good book if you want to start feeling guilty about your dinner, how you host dinners. Um, so moving on. Right. So we tend to open meetings with logistics, which is actually exactly the opposite of what was suggested by the art of gathering that we talked about earlier. Um, and it almost takes on a ritualistic context if you do this every week. So we start with sort of agenda, when's our next meeting, who's taking notes, who's facilitating if we're rotating facilitators. We then consent to the agenda. So is there something that was missing from the agenda? Is everyone on board with what we're going to talk about in the next hour or 2 hours? And then we roll into check-ins. And what I do with my check-ins is I will paste a link to a feelings wheel, because I find if you giving people vocabulary to talk about how they're doing is often gives you a deeper response than just, oh yeah, I'm tired. Um, Although we do get I'm tired quite frequently as well. So this provides sort of it sets expectations for what we're doing together. And then it also allows us to connect as people to our teammates. And my lab is hybrid. So some of the students, this is the only time they're really meeting their colleagues. Unless they're doing sort of one-off projects together. So this is one way to tend to those human relationships to develop with your coworkers. When you think of meeting agendas and you think of creating an agenda, you often focus in on this middle part. And when I create an agenda item, I try to assign it one of these three categories, either an update or a report. So, are we doing some sense making together? Are we trying to understand something? An exploration or a formulation. So, are we brainstorming ideas? Are we trying to come up with solutions together? And then, are we deciding on something? Is there a consent process involved here? So, those are sort of the three middle elements of our meeting. Um, and then finally, the end of our meeting. So, what are we talking about next time? So we'll often develop sort of this backlog list. Has anything new surfaced during the call that we need to follow up on later? So that'll all go on this topics for next time. And then this is also a great opportunity for feedback. So less so with my regular meetings. This often just ends up being a checkout. Hey, how are you leaving this call? But it can also be an opportunity to improve your meeting itself. So especially if you have a new facilitator or new note taker, taking 5 minutes at the end of your call to say, hey, what worked well with this meeting? What should the facilitator carry forward? And what didn't work quite so well, what should maybe change next time. Um, so when you time these outs, and I'm going to show you an example of our agenda in the next slide. But for a 1 hour meeting, we generally take 10 minutes in the beginning and 5 minutes in the end. So that gives us 45 minutes to play with in the middle. And oftentimes, if you're bringing an item to a meeting as opposed to just having it be an email announcement, you want to listen to everybody who's there. So each of your agenda items generally needs 5 to 15 minutes, depending on how many rounds you want to do in the meeting, because you want to give everybody, if you've gone to the trouble of getting people synchronously together, you want to listen to everybody who's in the room. So that is often when you're starting facilitating, you'll often build these very deep and detailed agendas and thinking about, okay, how can heard the duck. How can we make sure that everybody's being heard? All right, so this will often look, so the numbers on the left-hand column here are the minutes and that each item is taking, and you can sort of, you can see what the purpose in the agenda item is here for each of those items. So again, this is an agenda with a large learning component to it. So we have 15 minutes of live coding to sort of test through and work and gather feedback on proposed workflows. Before that is a little bit more sort of a group stand-up format. And I have linked into the notes document two templates that we use in many of my meetings. The first one on the left here is an agenda template. And so this is generally very academic focused, but there are some sort of standard academic formats that I use. And then on the right is an organization template. So all of the agendas for a particular project will go into a centralized document with links to project resources on there as well. And we've got a little bit of bio. So if you're interested, you can explore that further. And with that, I'm done.